What's up, guys? This is Mark from the Squat Plug. You are listening to episode 30. In this episode, we discuss 2024 Raw Nationals, the elevation and the impact it had on performance, the reduction in qualifying totals, Matt Gary's departure from the U.S. World Team, and Sub-Junior Worlds, the debacle that went on there, as well as our usual banter. So we hope you enjoy. Like, comment, subscribe, all that stuff. Enjoy the episode, guys.
Welcome to episode 30 of the Squat Plug. Today it's just me, Mark, and Mateo. We'll be talking about a couple of things. We'll start off with the USAPL Nationals and then work from there. Hello and good morning. How you guys doing?
Hello and good morning. I am doing well. How are you?
Good. In absolute pain right now, miserable pain. As a powerlifter fresh off a peak and having competed at 6 very competitive soccer games yesterday, I'm in indescribable amount of pain.
You play soccer like that? What are you?
The mere mortal mind cannot comprehend the pain that I'm going through right now.
What position do you play?
Right defense.
Oh, you fucking people up.
I'm fucking hurting right now.
Why you do this?
So we signed up for a soccer game, right? It was like 7v7, like it's like league and shit. And,
Who's we? The fire department or your firehouse?
Yeah, so the fire department had a tournament for soccer, like in different
Gotcha.
firehouses. I signed up, and very low expectations. I'm talking about we were expecting to show up there and lose the first game, which is why I signed up. And then we did very, very well. We made it to the fucking finals and lost on a fucking on goal kicks. You know, it's like you have like three you have three shots for each team, and the first team that misses loses.
Wait, so this was all done in one day?
Yes.
You mean penalty kicks? You mean penalty kicks?
Yeah, penalty kicks. Yeah,
I don't even know what they're called.
Yeah,
and that's how and you made it to the final. That's crazy.
Yeah, I know. Well, apparently being big and being somewhat quick is a boon on the soccer field. But we did very well. In fact, I think one of our games we won 7-1 against the other team and that kind of shit. And we just kept looking at each other like all surprised, like how the fuck is this happening? How are we not being destroyed right now? You know, I think the collective team that we had. You know, like their last average like a soccer performance was maybe about 10 years ago. So yeah, that should not have happened. But
it's like the same feeling you had when you went 3 for 3 on bench.
Pretty much. Pretty much. It's been an interesting past few weeks. I keep surprising myself.
We were all just as surprised as you were, trust me.
Ben showed up and did the damn thing. So Nationals, yeah. I went 3 for 3 in bench press. I went 3 for 3 in deadlifts. I did not go 3 for 3 on squats. This is a little bit different because I took basically 5 days off, maybe if not 6 days off between sessions. And the last time I trained was on Tuesday, and it was a very light squat. I did like 445 pounds or something like that for a couple of reps. Yeah. So when I got onto the bar. A little bit sleep deprived, a little bit hungry, whatever the case happens to be. Legit, I wasn't taking care of my diet as I was handling lifters. I got under the bar at 628 pounds, which I opened up with. I was like, "What the fuck is this?" It felt heavy, and I knew immediately I was going to have some issues. James was like, "Oh, you should go up to this." I was like, No. We're going to be conservative. We're not going up to that number." And he put down 302.5, and I was telling him even that was too high. You know, that's how bad I felt. You know, that's how off things felt. So get on 302.5, and I was like, oh, man, bro, this is not feeling light on my back. And as I came down and whatnot, it literally felt like if I had gone to depth, I would not have made it. So it was a calculated move to cut depth there. It wasn't me missing depth like in training and so on and so forth. This is a different phenomenon over here. You know, third squat, same thing. The positioning started to finally feel better. I came down, and my legs just closed on me. I was like, I didn't get it. Got it to the top, shook my head. The judges saw it, 3 reds, over and done with. It is what it is. I know going forward that I need to have a more comp-specific squat lift closer to meet day, so the preparedness levels maintain themselves. They fell apart at the seams. Bench press did well. Bench press, my biggest issue was just essentially dealing with the whole shoulder pain situation, and then taking the extra time off allowed it to recover. When it came to deadlifts, my back has been cooked lately and whatnot, so the extra time off allowed it to recover. So, of course, bench press is going to do very well, and of course, deadlifts are going to do fucking phenomenal. You know, they're pitting an all-time PR 5 kg, and I felt like we could have did more. You know, I don't know whether 740, 750 was there or whatnot, but it certainly felt like it may well have been that day.
Well, I think you really turned your performance around after only going 1 for 3 on squat. So I think overall it's a pretty good day, especially if we contrast that to your previous performance at the Arnold. So
Yeah, no, that was rough. That was rough. But these things happen, and as I think you realize you're not always going to be winning. You just have to take it on the chin and keep moving. Put your nose to the grindstone, get the fucking work done. Your
Absolutely.
work will pan out eventually. It's just one of those things.
And it's tough competing on a Sunday after you handled lifters from Thursday through Saturday, right?
It is.
Yeah.
Like,
It is.
I was even back there with you on Saturday for Mr. Whitetoe over here and Kenny. And it was, you mentioned not taking care of your nutrition during this time. And I wasn't competing, but even I wasn't able to take care of my nutrition. I was like going back to my Airbnb starving at the end of the day, because you're on your feet, you're running around and you're going to get a little coffee and like a muffin or something. But yeah, those days could be, very taxing and very,
Yeah.
What?
I had a talk with a couple people about Yuli and how he handles people up until midday, like a couple coaches, and they were like, "Yo, this guy's fucking crazy. I don't know. I have no idea how he does it." And I'm like, "Yeah, bro. Like, that's how he is. He's gonna handle if he can, if he's available. Doesn't matter who's competing the day after. You've handled people in the same day when you were competing,
Rob.
like the session before you. No.
No,
I'm saying, like, remember them.
This past meet, I was competing at the same time as Rob was.
Yeah, no, but I'm saying you have handled people right before you competed at a local meet in New York.
I did that. I did that at CT States this past year with Kevin. We competed in the same session. He was in a different flight, so I would come off, my attempt, and I would go over. I'd be like, "You're good. You taking your warm ups? Like, where are you?" And then I would go back, and then I would just I just did that the entire. I performed terribly. And I wouldn't say, part of it was probably due to the fact that I was too focused on what he was doing. I was in coach mode and I couldn't really get into athlete mode and execute the way that I wanted to because I was way too preoccupied with what he was doing. But, hey, you got to prioritize your people. You know what I mean?
Honestly, I think as a coach, it's important to lead from the front. And if you find yourself out there competing, by all means. I think we have to.
I don't recommend that to other coaches, though. I
don't. If you're trying to have an optimal performance as a coach and you're doing handling the day before or the days before or the session of, it's probably not the most anabolic to your performance.
No, I think you just have to accept that.
Yes.
You have to decide what's more important to you. Especially if you're a coach / athlete. It doesn't mean that both can't be equally important or they're not both equally important. It's but which one are you going to prioritize? Because if you're going to prioritize your own performance, then you can't be handling, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, not eating, barely, watching prime time, going back to the Airbnb late, sleeping and getting up at 5 a.m. to go meet someone for weigh-ins.
Well, all I gotta say is on Sunday morning, as I was getting ready to compete, I was waiting for any illness, anything of that nature, to just say fuck this, I'm not competing, pull out, and just focus on Rob instead.
You said to me on Saturday night I should just pull out.
Yeah, that's what I was considering.
Because we were both exhausted.
I wanted Rob to have a good meet, and I didn't want to find myself having a cult meet where nine paragraph. Oh, but this, that, and the other thing and shit like that.
Yeah.
I don't see the point in it. I know why the meet was rough, and I'm willing to accept it and whatnot. I was expecting turbulence going in, and lo and behold, I encountered it. I turned it around at the end of the day and whatnot. It's just not what I wanted it to be. Objectively speaking, a 37.5 kg downtrend for my best performance probably isn't the best thing. I do know that I can do more as time goes on, and things have indeed been trending up. But for this meet itself, the emphasis was indeed on coaching people, so I'll take what I can.
It is what it is, man. And what about you, Mateo? How do you feel about your performance?
Let's start with the fact that I wasn't coaching any people, and I totaled 50 kilos less at my best meet at one time.
Yeah, it was a 47.5 kg, I think.
I think so.
So not a whole 50, not a whole 50. Give yourself some grace.
No. It was 52.5 kilos.
Oh, 52.5.
Yeah.
Well, not a whole 55.
Phenomenal.
Yeah, true. Not a whole.
It's not 60,
Could be worse.
Silver lining.
I could have had 0, like Yuli knows.
Yeah, Arnold. That was bad.
But yeah, it was interesting meet, honestly.
Yeah, but you had recently gained some weight. And then, I'm saying you recently had gained some weight, didn't quite work out in your favor, so decided to cut the weight, And then I think you kind of came into Nats on the tail end of that cut, correct?
Yes. So I did the World Cup in June, like
Yep.
late June. I at the World Cup I weighed I think 116, but also like the week before that I was like close to like 117, 118.
Yeah. So that's
So I
already
cut
that's a
like
quick turnaround.
yeah, so I cut like what 15 pounds
Yeah. So
basically.
that's a quick turnaround where you have to
Yeah,
train hard and simultaneously lose some body weight at the
yeah.
same time. So
I mean, the thing is like training was going pretty decently until like
until it
I
wasn't.
le until I left for Salt Lake City. Like deadlifts were decent, squats were decent, bench was fine too. And then we just went there and we got there and it was
It just
off.
tanked.
Yeah.
Even his training
Yeah,
workout didn't seem the
It's
best.
also tough when when your training status, say, right, is going to fluctuate a lot when you're on the downtrend of body weight, especially if you're going to
yeah,
lose a significant amount, like say 10 to 15 pounds. It's like, even on that down slope, right? It's like for training too, you're going to see, right, it's going to go up some days, it's going to come down, but it tends to be, it swings a little more wildly, right? When
Yes.
you
yeah,
have because you're short or limited, so limited on recovery resources, right? Because you're
yeah,
in such a massive energy deficit, right? That like your recovery resources are limited. So some days are going to be better because some days you're going to end up eating a little bit more, some days you're going to sleep a little bit more than others, and how that affects your performance is obviously going to fluctuate as well. But I think at some point you tend to sort of stabilize, right? Your body weight stabilizes, your performance starts to stabilize, some sort of like baseline, and then it's like, okay, now once we've normalized the body weight and you're used to the workload of the training, now we can kind of start to creep things back up, and
And
you'll
that can
start to
take
see some.
weeks, months
Dude, it
sometimes.
could take months.
It's
months. Yeah.
insane.
I think a good anecdote here is so my lifter Kevin, this was in 2023. He he decided to sign up for a marathon, and his heaviest body weight at the time I think was like 115 kilos, and he decided I'm going to do a marathon, and I'm also going to lose like 40 pounds, right? So he did this. He executed. We don't have to get into the details. He executed. He lost the body weight, and then he goes, "I want to do a meet as a 100 kilo lifter," and I believe that was 2023 regionals. So we showed up. He lost 17 and a half kilos off of his total, but once the body weight normalized, the training kind of, all his strength started to come back, right? We started to see the numbers creep back up. And then the next meet that he did, he also competed as a 100 kilo lifter, roughly the same body weight, and beat his previous total that he hit at 115 kilos by 2.5 kilos, right? So PR'd his total at, 40 pounds less body weight. It took an entire two meet cycles at
True.
Yeah.
least.
True.
You know what I mean? And I think that, like, you need to accept that, hey, this might take 3, 4, 5 months, right? It's not like oh yeah, no, we'll be good in 4 to 6 weeks. It's like,
Absolutely not.
no, you need to respect like biology and how long these processes take, right? And it's just like, it is what it is. And it's like, it's not like you're going to stop training. It's like, what are you going to do? Not train? It's like, just adjust it or scale it to how it needs to be for where you're at right now. And then as it starts to come back, like boom, 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 and be ready to rock. You know what I mean?
True. And it's
Back
also
back
something.
to that peak performance.
It's also something that pans out as well. From what I've seen anecdotally at this past meet, on average, the people who are cutting into the meet by far had reduced expectations to what to do. Rob Hill did not cut. Rob Hill went out for 9 PRs all across the board, every single fucking lift. Total, all that kind of shit, and it's not a coincidence. Mateo was cutting up until the very day before. When you basically
Yeah.
find yourself not being able to eat and so on and so forth and whatnot, it has an impact on performance.
I mean, I
Yep.
was able to eat. I wasn't able to drink as much food as I wanted.
Yeah.
That's the main thing.
Leandro had a similar situation as well. He had to make weight, and he found himself cutting the night before and that kind of shit. I said, if you're going to do a water cut, I want you to do it the day of, not the night before. And he passed out 3 times on the platform. Passed out his third squat, passed out his first bench press, and passed out at the start of his first deadlift. Got to show
Yeah,
Yeah.
that.
but also you want to talk about the elevation that we're talking about and how
Yes,
it actually affected people.
and it actually affected people. So I want to say I saw a decrease in performance, more or less all across the board. I haven't done the numbers like actually, like graph it out and that kind of stuff. But people who I've been watching for a while, did not have the meets that they wanted to have. So the person who won the 125 kg weight class,
I wouldn't be so quick to point my finger solely at the elevation.
I think
I
that's the only
mean,
difference.
let me tell you
I'm not
this.
saying that it
So,
doesn't make a difference. I'm
so
saying it's definitely or can be a contributing factor, but
let me tell you this.
I
There
think
was
that's a
apparently,
cope for people who didn't do well, and then they can
I know,
easily
but
point their finger at the
let me tell you
elevation.
this.
No, go ahead.
There was apparently multiple people passing out on all platforms. And also, I have this guy that I train with, James Flanagan, that he trains in Colorado every now and then. Like, he goes to Colorado a lot. I think his family there. And he was saying that every time I train up there, I feel like terrible. Like he apparently asked me, he recommended me this one drink that he had that I wish I knew about before, and he was like, it actually, like he was like, if I don't actually have that, I cannot train. And also, he did a Pilots American Nationals in Reno, which is like a similar elevation to Salt Lake City, and he was saying like, yeah, I don't know, that's
Well,
like he was like, my even my deadlifts.
that's also something that I was going to bring up because we did mega nationals in Vegas,
Yeah, I mean,
and like
I don't
nobody,
know.
I didn't hear anybody complaining about the extreme heat or the dry heat or the
It's
elevation
different
then.
though.
But
So
again,
it's not
also
the same
like,
elevation.
I mean, if you're going to go to a different climate, like in general, that's probably going to be a contributing factor on your performance. Maybe. I don't know. I think it's going to vary per person. Like if you are that a person that's saying, hey, like the elevation of negatively affected my performance, I'm not going to say no, it didn't. You know,
All I
your
gotta say is,
experience is valid. I just don't think that it affected everybody across the board to the same degree.
Mark, have you spent much time in high elevations apart from there,
Have
like
you?
in training
Have
wise and
you?
that kind of stuff? I have.
I used to
The
fight
mountains of
bears in the
Kosovo.
mountains of Albania.
In the
No,
mountains,
literally,
I
the mountains
trained
of
in the
Kosovo.
mountains of Kosovo.
So,
No,
so,
I have not, Ely.
there's a difference there, and let's also take a look at what we call it, Las Vegas, where it sits versus Salt Lake City. Las Vegas is 2,000 feet above sea level. Salt Lake City is 4,300 feet above sea level. There's a marked difference there. Now, the other thing also is when I see people behind the scenes tell me they're having a hard time breathing, and these are people who aren't aware of the whole what you call it, like high altitude thing, whatnot. They're just showing up to meet, and these are people who I haven't like spoken to. Said, by the way, it's higher altitude, and seeing that happen, I'm like, interesting. So you see this happening, see people passing out. Leandro's never passed on a squat. He's passed on bench press before. He's never passed on a
But
deadlift.
not the opener.
Not the opener. So I don't know, just different things taking place there. And also seeing people who I know have been having great training show up over there and just watch it go nosedive and whatnot. Maybe some. I'd say it's worth, if anything, at the very least, it's worth looking at people's performances from last nationals to this nationals at an average and seeing whether or not there's an uptick or a downtick in performance.
I totally agree with you that the elevation can have an effect on performance. I agree with you. And like I said, that is going to vary per person. But we also see this at meets at, lower elevations, I guess, if you want
Not to
to
this
use that
extent.
term.
Yeah.
No, but we have nationals every year, and we see people that have great training cycles and go in and completely tank, right? So like, I just don't want to be so quick to point the finger solely at the elevation. Do I think that could negatively impact your performance? Yes. But like, if your performance tanked, I don't know. It's maybe, and I think that's a sliding scale too. How much that contributed to the impact on performance, right?
So I'd like to see the numbers there. It would better help out with that. I think the only real difference we're seeing here, because it wasn't particularly hot over there, it wasn't particularly cold. We were dealing with an air-conditioned environment. The only real difference here, apart from apart from Memphis, Tennessee, where people wouldn't perform, they had spectacular meets or had shitty meets, depending on what training I had going for them, was indeed the altitude. I'd like to see that pan out, and I'd also like to actually see an actual study about this, which like didn't work off like 7 people who were doing MMA and decided to all of a sudden.
Yeah,
Like,
I mean, we're never going to see a study that compares actual
Yeah.
powerlifting performance at different elevations. But like I said, I'm not saying that it can't contribute. And if you felt personally, like not you, anybody listening or anybody at Nats felt like, hey, the elevation absolutely negatively affected me, I believe you. I'm not going to sit here and say, nope, no, it can't, no, it didn't. It's just, I'm weary to apply like a cause and effect sort of mindset to something like that.
So I went into this, and a few people who did speak about it, I told them essentially, being at higher altitude, you're farther from the Earth's core, and so there's less gravitational pull. You can expect it to be anabolic. That's what I said. So if there's any placebo, nocebo thing happening, whatnot, it should take about the other end. And then when I have people tell me they're having a hard time breathing and passing out on the platform, that's what I have to say, all right, something's actually taking place over here.
No, I
people who've never
agree.
had that issue before, like Lexi and like Samantha and that kind of stuff,
Yeah, I agree. I'm not saying, yeah.
That's
Yes.
just where I'm coming from. But legit, I'm bringing it up not as a cold point out because it is what it is. Like we're going to deal with tougher environments and that kind of stuff. We're going to have things not be as suitable as you'd like them to be on certain meet days, and it's part of the course. I'm just curious to see the extent of the effect that it has. And if we can see like a number there.
Same. I'm just as curious, and that's why I am not so quick to jump to any conclusions. Because I am just as curious, and I would like to see more, just more data points, more information on this, other than your performance tanked at Nats and you were at a higher elevation, therefore it was due to higher elevation.
Yeah, no, I hear. I'd like to see the goal. Let me actually take a look at something real quick here. I'm trying to see if we can actually develop like a data pool with more than an n size greater than 1. So Reno is also 4,500 feet above sea level. If somebody were to take a look at the performances at Reno versus the lifters at the last competition, and then compare that to the effect that's visible there versus people, I guess, like at Salt Lake City versus their last competition, and I want to say like a lower sea level, probably start to maybe get some better data on this. Maybe see if there are other meets against a higher altitude and show like that which people go to. And then see
I would. I mean, we'd have to ask like a statistician. That's starting to get out of my.
I know here.
That's getting beyond like what I understand about statistics and statistical modeling and all that stuff. So
I have a couple people I could hit up. I think I'm going to hit them up after this episode to see.
Yeah,
it would just be interesting to see.
No, 100%, 100%.
But anyway, speaking of nationals, next year,
Yes.
Atlanta.
Yes.
Hotlanta, baby.
Yes, sir.
But yeah, so Atlanta.
I'm excited for Atlanta. I'm happy that I know people are ambivalent over the fact that they dropped the qualifying totals back down, but I think that was contextually, right, based on the current circumstances, the smart move, because there were multiple weight classes where even podium finishers were not qualifying for next year's nationals.
So let's take a look at the actual numbers. I spoke to Eric Cordero, and he presented the actual numbers. He said to date, this is before states take place in March and that kind of stuff for next year. To date, 1,300 people qualified for nationals next year.
Okay, but let me ask you this.
QT.
I understand that, but let me ask you this.
Yeah, but how many people? Sorry to cut you off, but I want to know: do we have the figure for how many qualified for the new QTs from this year?
From the new QTs?
You like not the new, so like the ones that were going to come into
1,300.
1,300.
Yes, 600.
But let me.
600 in the open.
Is that just 600? Is that from this year's national competitive pool, like from this year's registration, national registration, not members or previous members or?
I'll give you the actual number.
That's the real question.
All right, so 1,311 people altogether. 539 masters qualified, 346 teens and juniors.
Yeah, but not even that many people competed at Raw Nats.
I know, but
but
altogether, you don't need to compete at Raw Nats for that to happen. So here are the numbers. There are 218 women and 208 men who have hit the original January QTs. In other words, the higher QTs. It doesn't take into account where they did it, but 426 open lifter competitors can hit those totals. That's what he said.
Okay,
and this is from what? The database?
Yeah.
Yeah. Probably, right? But how many of those lifters actually still compete in the USAPL, just competed at Raw Nationals,
And also,
haven't gone to Powerlifting America yet
and
already.
my question is, you said out of those 1,300 people, 600 in the Open and almost 600 in the Masters.
400 in the
Like,
Open, 600
wouldn't
Masters.
you want the Open lifters to be more than the Masters lifters?
But the thing is, Masters is. Oh, one second. Let me actually put this in the charge real quick.
Because like you said, like there's more Masters lifters that qualify than Open lifters.
Well, Masters is going to be.
So that way, yeah, for sure. Like it's 1,300 people that qualified, but if more than half of them are Masters, and
But even with the 400 core here, right? Let's just say we have all the weight classes we have. Even according to that, you still have 20 people representing each weight class.
Here's the thing, though. I'm pretty sure that data is just being pulled from the rankings database.
Yeah,
And
but similarly also,
like any number of those people that they could have gone to Powerlifting America. They could not be they could not even be competing anymore. They're just pulling numbers from the database.
true, but we're looking at basically people qualifying for nationals mostly through states and regionals. When do states and regionals take place?
What does that have to do with anything?
March of 2025 is when states are going to be taking place, state championships. That entire month, you're going to have everybody qualifying for this. So we have 400 some odd people qualifying so far. We have, right now, what is it? It's September, October, November, December, January, February, March. We have 7 more months of people for people to qualify for nationals. So if we have 400 so far, by March of next year, how many will we have? I think they would have been
there's
okay
400. There's 400 currently with the old QTs, right?
with the old more competitive QT.
Yes, but again, 400 people. Usually by now, they would have enough people to like fill out the whole competition. Enough people have qualified already by now. By the time nationals finished, most of these people would have qualified for next year's nationals.
How many lifters competed at Raw Nationals in total?
900 something, 980.
900 and something, right? And of that 900 and something lifters, how many qualified for next year's nationals based on the QTs that were going to take effect in 2025 but did not?
Sure, but we also
Not
we
400.
also have to mention.
Not fucking 400 of them.
We have to.
I don't know. I think the point I was going to make was that, you know, only a small portion of lifters that actually competed at this year's Raw Nationals qualified for next year's Raw Nationals with the previous totals that were going to go into effect in 2025.
Yes.
Right? So in order to have a Nationals that isn't 200 people next year, they had to drop the qualifying totals back down to some extent.
So
right?
I think they still could have met the 200 lifter cap for next year. I think what it comes down to, is
what
when you
cap?
have, like basically they're going to have 20 people per weight class show up next year. That was what the aim was.
Ah,
That's essentially what it boiled down to. You're going to have 20 very competitive people showing up to nationals, which would have been fantastic. It would have been the most competitive meet out there. But as a sport, and how we operate right now, let's just say you have those 20 most competitive people show up out there. How is USAPL going to make money off this? Off of ratings? Off of viewership? Sponsorships and that kind of stuff? No, that's absolutely not how it happens. Unfortunately,
And again,
the sport itself, how the sport makes money, how these federations make money, is by people physically showing up to these events, buying tickets and that kind of stuff. And so when you only have 200 people showing up, and you have 200 people's family members, as opposed to 1,000 people's family members and 1,000 people showing up, whatnot, what is the difference there from a budget perspective? You know, so I would surmise.
But my point was, though, hold on. My point was, let's take the 90 kilogram men's class, for example, right? I remember because I looked it up because I remember seeing someone post about it, and I looked it up to confirm. But the previous qualifying total that was going to go into effect for the 90 kilograms men's open next year was 797.5 kilos.
Yep.
Right. The top 2 finishers in the 90 kilo class from this year's Raw Nationals totaled just over 800. The third place guy was like 795, so 2.5 kilos under, and then everyone else was obviously had a lower total, right?
Well,
So you only have the top 2 people in that weight class qualifying for next year.
But
Where's that 20? Where's the 20 lifters coming from?
But
There's
how?
not going to be 20 because what's going to happen is all the masters
If
have
if
qualified
they
already.
kept, my point is, if they kept the qualifying totals the same,
But look
if
at
they kept that 90 kilo, 797.5 kilo total the same, where are they getting 20
so
lifters
the
from?
The
mistake
masters lifters.
the mistake. No, hold no,
Probably.
wrong. So you're making the mistake you're
Open.
making right now. The mistake you're making right now is you're comparing and saying that nationals is a representation of the most competitive lifters in the USAPL, and unfortunately, it's
Yes,
not.
it is.
It's not. And the reason why it's not is because the quickest people to sign up for the meet are the people who are showing up to nationals. That's what it comes
Okay.
down to. And people who are up and coming and so on and so forth, who make those totals, who did not sign up in time for nationals, aren't making it to nationals.
All right, let me tell you. Let
So
me
it's
tell you
not
this.
representative of the most competitive lifters
All right.
in the federation.
All right, let me tell you this then about my weight class, 110 juniors, right?
Yeah.
The best 110 junior in the USAPL right now, this year, has an 840 total, and I think that person is not even a USAPL anymore. And the qualifying total is 832.5. The winner of the 110 juniors
juniors?
total 802.5. Yes, there's no junior. There's not a single junior that's going to qualify with the old qualifying totals. Not a single junior.
That's my point. Is they were so high that the people who did, and I get what you're saying, Yuli, is that like there are some people that didn't get to sign up for nationals that maybe would have hit these qualifying totals. But then let's say that, you know, in the juniors that makes, all right, the first third, the 1, 2, and 3 placings only hit the qualifying total, right? Or it's still going to create the same problem, right? Where it's not even allowing for 20 lifters per weight class in the open, right? It's like it's literally just 3 people qualifying. And yeah, maybe there's some people out there who have those totals and can sign up. But what is that? Like maybe so let's say it's 5 more people. Now we're only talking about not even 10. We won't even have a top 10.
What was the QT, Mateo?
832 and a half.
832 and a half. The winner of the 110s, total 802 and a half.
So what I'm seeing here is in the year of 2024, in juniors 2023, in 110 kg weight class in the USAPL, one lifter, Gideon Adu, made the 800 the qualifying total 837.5.
Yeah.
Let me take a look
I'm
real quick.
telling
What's the open number? What was
Well,
832. It was the same.
The old one, those ones are gone now, though.
Yeah, no. The open total was also 832 and a half. So both juniors and open had the same exact qualifying.
It was, yeah. That
yeah, for the
832 and a half was going to come into effect in January 2025.
832 and a half. So based off of that, there we're looking at what comes out to 15 people who actually would have qualified for that total as well in the open 110 kg weight class.
And again, does this count people who are actually going to stay in the UC?
No, you're just looking up like general pools of 110 class.
Yes.
Like we're not like I think that we should base any of this on who did nationals. And like yeah, maybe there's some people out there like, you know, our lifter Quentin, for example, who qualified and could have done it. But are there fucking 100 of those people out there? I don't know.
I mean,
you know, there's
data here for just 110 randomly and whatnot, and seeing the numbers I'm seeing over here, it indicates that maybe I guess that's not going to be the case.
Because I think you have to look at who actually did nationals this past year and look at the totals that people hit, because you can't just assume some influx of people that are unknown are going to come in and like fill out the classes.
Yeah. And also, my thing is like, what will probably happen if the qualifying total stay the same? The meet will be filled with masters lifters.
Yeah, I mean, I know it looks good to pull, you know, general data from the fucking database, the rankings database, and be like, oh, we have 1,300 members that qualify, when like probably 60 to 70% of those people aren't even USAPL members anymore, or it's like, or you know, that's kind of silly. I know it looks cool for Instagram, but that's not representative of the actual people who are going to sign up in 2025.
No, again, I don't think it's 60 or 70% that will not sign up.
I'm just making up figures, by the way.
Yeah,
that was totally made up.
Yeah, but also like again, I think what would probably happen, in my opinion, again, like I said, it would have been filled with divisions that have really low qualifying totals to begin with, which is like teens and masters.
But
But
they
if
can't.
you're
Yeah,
They
like there
won't do
wouldn't
that.
be
like high
that many
total,
open at all.
I think this change was slated to take place either way. I mean, looking at this, you can't have a nationals which highlights teens and which highlights masters. It's not going to happen. It's not. It wouldn't be tenable. I think
yeah,
they probably would have lowered the QT either way. I guess like from month to month to get closer. I guess to the meet to lower by maybe 5 kg or percentage points. That's what I think that would have happened there. I do think that it's a better move to decide to open up this way. Um, Looking at numbers and looking at like comparing nationals and so on and so forth. Last year, Austin, from what I understand, for which we call Powerlifting America, the turnout was piss poor. From what I heard, there were spotters and loaders whose checks were bouncing after the meet. They were
See,
having
this is one of the bigger issues with Powerlifting America is they don't have the infrastructure to do the meets. They have the clout to pull the bigger name lifters, but they don't have the bottom half that USAPL has that actually make up the local scene and local meets and state meets and regional meets, right? They only have they have their top 3 people that they can send to IPF Worlds, and then like even remember watching that Nationals, it was like the top
yeah,
3 were and then the drop offs were insane.
and that,
And that's why they don't even have a qualifying total for their nationals because they need to take anybody
exactly.
just to get enough registration fees to even have a nationals because they absolutely do not have money in the bank to support, getting to subsidize a national meet at a convention center or anything like that. Because like you just said, the turnouts are piss poor, right? And they might be getting a little bit bigger, but it's still not what USAPL has, right?
Well, look at the numbers. I actually looked at it the other day to see how many meets they had in the calendar year versus how much the USAPL had. Within a similar time frame, the USAPL had 3 times as many meets as Powerlifting America did. And
Yeah.
I was like, oh shit. So there is a legitimate discrepancy in that. So something else that takes place over here, like in addition to the financial stuff over here, which actually tie into the financial stuff, is just how they administer themselves. Now we got shit talk for the rally meet, however the fuck you pronounce it. I don't give 2 shits. People can't fucking.
It's Raleigh, okay?
People
As the
can't
only
pronounce
as the
Spike
only as the only American here.
Raleigh.
It's Raleigh, all right?
So at the rally meet, what happened there is it was predicated off a percent to national record, and it was going to be that way. There are going to be national level referees and international referees there, and then a month out from the meet, which we'll call it, the Powerlifting America president decided to pull the rug out from under them and said, no, it's going to be a local meet. Think about how ridiculous that has to be. So why would that take place? Well, for one, what comes to mind is they have to do expensive tests now. Now all of a sudden, all these people need to be water tested, right? Maybe they don't have the budget for that. If they can't fucking afford to fucking pay fucking spotters and loaders at meets, you think they'd be before this? So it's roughly around the same time frame. I can imagine, like
That's a good point.
Financial dire straits caused it to happen, which is unfortunate, by the way. We were bullshitting and talking about the Raleigh meet and that kind of stuff, but I was really genuinely hoping to see a fantastic meet. It ended up being a very good meet. I love the performance that I saw over there and that kind of stuff. It sucks that Joe Bornstein's national record, in fact, world records total didn't count because of the fact he didn't have what's called the right referees there. Because
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like they don't have the infrastructure. Whether it's like on almost on every level of that you can kind of consider infrastructure of running meets.
Yes.
It's just not there. It's not robust enough, right? They don't even have the correct referee. Like, and I know this is kind of speculation, but like they can't even afford the drug testing. They can't afford their spotters and loaders, so they're gonna get it's like bottom of the barrel D team spotters and loaders, and like you can't even get the right referees in the chairs for your top level lifters to hit records. Like it's an absolute joke.
It is,
and it's but each federation though is shooting themselves in the foot by just like further engaging in this stupid division of federations. I know that everybody has their, I know this is like above my pay grade and everyone has their differences and reasons behind this, but if everyone really wanted what was best for the lifters, then like the Powerlifting America and USAPL would reconcile their differences.
So it's not up to Powerlifting America and USAPL. That's up to.
But
No. Hold on a second. Hold on. This is important. This needs to be.
I have
pointed out.
go ahead because I have a wonderful point to make.
This comes down to Gaston Parage, and this comes down to Keller, who are in charge, who refuse to work together with anybody apart from themselves, such that they actually have a rule which bans people from competing like elsewhere. Article 14. Mark, go ahead. You're raising your hand.
I am raising my hand because I knew that you were going to go to the IPF. That was going to be your counter. So my counter is that and I'm sorry I keep coming close to the mic, but my counter, I'm doing theatrics over here, but my counter is that if Powerlifting America and USAPL would put aside their differences and work together, USAPL is already creating an international scene. They are in the works of creating an international body. And I think that if Powerlifting America, let's be honest, has all of the top lifters in the United States, we brought them back over into one pool, that we could take over and kind of just push IPF off into the distance.
So let me ask you this question here.
I think that every country would get on board because everybody else is sick of the IPF shit too.
So that's true, but what is the USAPL doing to deter or to inhibit anybody from Powerlifting America?
What do you mean?
But that's not the point.
No, that's not the point, though. Trust me. We can bring up Article 14 all the. That's IPF's thing.
So it is the IPF's thing, and it's also Powerlifting America's thing.
It's Powerlifting America's thing because it's an IPF thing.
So I understand that, but we're talking about the division of USAPL.
If USAPL and Powerlifting America, work together to take over the entire fucking international drug-tested powerlifting scene, right? Push IPF out, get every other country that's affiliated with the IPF on board.
Mark,
why do you think that that's not a possibility? I think that's a very realistic thing that could happen.
It could, but it won't happen because of how. So I don't know if you know the history. Keller was part of the EC. He was part of the USAPL EC. And then when USAPL had its issues with the whole drug testing, because they were doing more drug tests than IPF wanted, because people were being drug test shamed apparently in their opinion, in their eyes. What happens? They decide to split up. Now Keller was a part of the EC, and he defected, and he said, "Fuck you, motherfuckers! I'm going to start my own federation." He doesn't give two shits about working together with USAPL. USAPL offered the olive branch to IPF. I don't know if you're aware of this, and said, "All right, we'll do the local meets and that kind of stuff. If you want to do the international style meets, the segue into IPF will allow you to have your own federation." They said, "No, we want nothing to do with you, period." So Gaston Parage, who's never competed in a powerlifting meet, by the way, go to open powerlifting, look at shit. He's never participated in the fucking sport. This motherfucker's in charge of the fucking face of drug tested powerlifting, by the way. It's a fucking sham. And so speaking of Helen Keller now, this person decides to defect off the whole drug testing thing to start his own drug testing federation, which doesn't drug test.
I agree with you.
So
I 100% agree with you. I just feel like this is much bigger than both Gaston Parage and
it is, but
Keller.
So it is, but these people are stopping it. They're stifling it, and they're stymieing any progress. Those two individuals, by the way.
That obviously we need a powerlifting proletariat revolution.
Let's start a third Fed.
That's what we need, another federation. That'll fix everything.
So this is the conversation. I've spoken to people within the USAPL and said this. I'd love to see reconciliation, which is what I'd love to see, which is what I think the whole sport needs to see. But because of the
everybody has too many personal differences, though, and I understand that it's not realistic because of silly, petty personal differences. I am just stating what I think would be better for the lifters, for the lifting community. No, I know nobody would disagree. I just don't really hear anybody talking about this. It's like everybody. It's either are we going to PA or are we staying in USAPL? Are we just gonna?
Mark, it's like saying, how about we vote for somebody else instead of Trump or Kamala? Not to get political and whatnot. But we have the reality of the situation, right?
I recognize that I'm the fucking idiot who's advocating for third party, but I'm standing on that for this. This is not fucking. We're not voting on the U.S. president. This is USA powerlifting, and I feel like the people have more power than they realize that they have. Yeah, I don't know. I'm just kind of tired of hearing the whole, are we just going to, it's like Powerlifting America versus USAPL. It's like, well, there's a solution that nobody wants to talk about.
True, but also nobody wants to work off that. And we can talk about hypotheticals till the cows come home. The reality situation is it's USAPL, Powerlifting America, and they are adamantly opposed to one another.
We both live in cities. The cows aren't coming anywhere near us, okay?
It's a metaphor, okay? It's a metaphor.
maybe where Mateo lives now.
Maybe.
Oh,
Fucking
come
booties.
on. Come on.
But no, so this kind of stuff though. So I do think
At least I don't have airplanes over my head.
Fair.
Yes.
Or construction under me.
Above me. It's above me, okay?
Above you.
Listen, my building is improving. All right?
Hey, get it right, okay?
But that kind of stuff. So I think that is an issue. It's something we'd love to see resolved. But so long as these entities exist, it's not going to happen. So I can imagine USAPL trying to grow its international stage, and it's trying to do so. It's changed its name. You have the International Drug-Free Powerlifting, whatever the acronym is, and whatnot, which is now officially coming into existence instead of it being USAPL Australia, USAPL Korea, and that kind of stuff, which is a great step, and I think should have been the first step that they undertook, as far as the international body is concerned. Legitimizes it and that kind of stuff. I think maybe a few less letters in the acronym is probably...
I mean, they're figuring it out as they go, which is probably... I mean, that's what we're doing. So we can't even fault them for it.
True. I don't know. It sucks to see the sport in this fashion, to see where it's at right now in this current state. And Article 14 is honestly the one thing which has caused that to happen, because these lifters could be competing in Powerlifting America, doing the whole thing in nationals meets and showing up to some amazing USAPL meets and growing both sides of the sport and growing the sport, period. What's taking place is they're being forced to show up to these shitty ass fucking national meets with fucking the spotters and loaders.
I agree, but I also think even just having two federations spreads the money around too much, to where both or neither fed can't have the production that they'd like or the lifters would like, because they're both kind of diluted a little bit because the fucking money's spread around so much.
Sure, but that's just
it's like what Mateo said. He's like, the production wasn't that great. And I'm not the first person to be like, oh, production is a priority, but a lot of the lifters like it, and I think it's good for the spectators. And if that's kind of subpar because, you're spending so much money to get a convention center and you're paying all your people and all the equipment and all this stuff, like, that's awesome. It's just like, if you had, again, I know it's unrealistic. I just think that if you pooled all the resources together, that you could have much better meets, much better productions for all of the lifters versus having these diluted productions and if you watch Powerlifting America Nationals, you see the top 3 guys in the weight class do well, and then you're watching fucking 110 kilo men open with 175 kilo squats. You're like, what the fuck is this?
I'm so much on board with this. I would be willing to, personally, if I was in charge, I'd be willing to extend what's called membership to untested people and to have them operate within their own bracket, just so we can have everybody operating under one fucking big
I agree that one's never going to happen.
I know, but
you're talking about I'm saying outlandish shit.
I understand, but
we should allow untested powerlifting as well.
The mindset is to have basically one federation which oversees all this stuff, grows as big as it can, have the best production, have the best turnouts. So let's talk about the spectators. Let's talk about turnouts. Now, USAPL having the meet in Salt Lake City. Salt Lake City is a wonderful city, by the way.
I thought it was great, to be honest.
Bro, the vistas and that kind of shit around it was fucking phenomenal. It was gorgeous. Legit. It was amazing to see. However, from a population standpoint, from a demographic standpoint, there isn't much happening over there. You look at where it's located and the surrounding cities or towns or villages and the surrounding states and whatnot, they're not particularly population dense. So what's going to happen is you're going to have an event and you have people saying, oh, man, do I travel all the way out to Salt Lake City? And the answer, as we found out there, was no. We didn't have that big of a turnout. There were some, it looked as though some of the stalls over there from vendor standpoint were doing very well, like 110, the Worker Co. at A7 and that kind of stuff. But from what I'm hearing from them themselves, it wasn't necessarily the case. Looking at other meets at Memphis, they're cleaning up shop, which is an indication of how many people are showing up there. You're gonna have more people purchase things. We have more people showing up. In Memphis, look at the demographics in surrounding areas. Look at the towns and states that are there. They're very, very, they're very, what you call it, very rich from a population standpoint. I think it being an ATL right now is the best thing they could have did because of how fucking rich and fucking dense that environment is.
I do think it is worth mentioning, though, that powerlifting as a spectator sport isn't super popular. So how many people are you going to just kind of bring in off the street that aren't powerlifters?
So you give them a reason
right?
to show up.
I agree, right? But how are they going to even know about this thing in the
Advertise.
first place, right?
Advertise.
It's not like powerlifting's advertised like NFL football.
I know.
You don't have, it's not as watched as a sport like that, right? So it's like, how are you going to bring in people who aren't powerlifters, aren't involved in strength sports, but just kind of, it's like, I think maybe strongman or CrossFit or something that's more globally popular and more televised, especially on networks like ESPN or things like that. People can I don't know, they find that, and I could see how people would find that more entertaining, right? Because it's like you're doing all these like different events, and it's especially with cross, like there's a lot going on, right? It's like powerlifting, it's like it's kind of, it's, so you go through the first flight, this first attempts, the second attempt, the third, and like I don't think it's fast paced enough for people to really get like engaged.
So what you can do is market it properly, and also, like I had said, I don't know if you saw my stories like a couple nights ago. Whatnot. I was talking about it, essentially becoming an expo of sorts, it becoming a festival, like a powerlifting festival instead of a festival that includes powerlifting, and then having things work around it, have it be the center stage, maybe have big displays with like pounds that are about to be lifted. And then people show up to it. Now there's like arm wrestling going on, there's like other sports going on. Things from the local infrastructure from Atlanta and whatnot, from the surrounding areas and whatnot, would be involved there as well. You reach out to these companies, reach out to these groups, these sports, and say, would you like to also come out over here as well? Here this is. And so now you have people showing up, normies showing up to our event. Lining the pockets of the federations which are running the meets there, that kind of stuff. Drawing more money into what you call it, into the sport. Yeah. And also familiarizing these people with the sport. So now they start to get the gist of it.
Yeah, I figure if you could do it for strongman, if you could do it for CrossFit, if you could do it for weightlifting, I don't see why you can't do that for powerlifting. Like, yeah, my point was it's a little more slow paced. There's not as much going on. It may be a little bit confusing if you don't kind of know the rules of the sport
Not
and how
as confusing
everything.
As CrossFit.
And what's that?
Not as confusing as CrossFit.
No, definitely not as confusing as CrossFit. I think CrossFit just keeps you sort of engaged and entertained because there's so much going on, even if you really don't know what's going on, right? Whereas like powerlifting, it's a little more slow paced, and I think to be engaged, you have to know what's going on, at least to some extent. Or at least like if people understood more, like okay, I think powerlifting's often watched from the standpoint of like, I'm just watching my friend and I'm going to wait for him to go up. And like, this is on average. I'm not saying like true fans of powerlifting, which tend to be mostly athletes who know the other athletes who kind of know who they're competing against, right? But I think most people watch it from the perspective of, I'm just waiting for my friend or my son or my spouse to come up or my sibling or whatever. And I'm going to go up there and I'm going to take a video and then I'm going to run back. And I'm not going to fucking pay attention to anything until they come back up, right? So you're not paying attention to like the board, right? You don't really know if they're like, let's say we are talking about someone who's like competing for a podium spot, right? And you kind of want to understand like, okay, like the last three lifters of this flight are going to be the ones that are kind of going up against each other. So this is how you're going to want to, maybe watch the squats and then this bench and how the subtotals shake out and then like understand how the fucking sport works, right? I think I don't think enough people who spectate or come to attend powerlifting meets like actually understand how the sport works. I think it's mostly the athletes and the coaches in the back room and the referees.
It's not, but also it's kind of hard to like actually understand who's like in which place, since there's nothing to like.
No, like lifting.
Screens.
I agree.
There's no screens. There's no like nothing showing placing.
And I talked to.
You have to open up Lifting Cast on your own to like see what's going on.
And I talked to, I forget exactly who I talked to about this, but someone that is in a position to make decisions on that stuff at Raw Nats. And I was saying how like it would be really cool to have on the display, like, how they show it on the YouTube stream?
Yeah.
They should show the same thing on the screens at the meet, right? They should show you, what your last attempt was, if you got the last attempt, and they could even do like a little more I think, stats than they already do on the YouTube live stream. And, you know, more of like, and maybe add some of the lifting cast stuff, you know, and be like, and, you know, where it's like, oh, if he pulls this, he's going to slide into second place, or he needs to pull this to go into
Yes. So
first place, or things like that will keep the people, the spectators engaged, that so they actually have some semblance of what's going on. And, you know, if someone's coming out to pull for the win, they actually know what's happening.
So
you know what I mean?
you need a top 10 board at the very least.
Ooh,
a top
yeah,
10
like,
board on the side, like in the back,
yes,
in
that
the
would
warm
be
up
great.
area. In the warm up area, like for each one of the platforms, have it fully visible. It makes it easy for everybody, so you can keep track of what's taking place instead of it just being on your platform, which you may have like 3 of the top 10 lifters, and you may have the actual people number 1 or 2 and 3 on the other platform. Keep it there so you can actually like work off of this. Then maybe have a side display to the side, which people in the media team who are sitting behind the desk over there can actually manipulate and do replays and things of that nature, which is what other compelling sports do, right? This is the lift that put him into 3rd place currently. This is the number he's supposed to be hitting over here. Here are other meets, and this is what he's done, how much he's been able to pull off the Instagram account. Do do your due diligence and make it fucking better, like a more polished presentation. It's not hard. It's not that difficult.
I don't want to like cut you off, but to interject, I do think that they're getting there. I think Barbell Productions did an incredible job this year.
I agree.
Especially with the live stream, like for YouTube specifically, the commentators did an incredible job.
I agree.
They did interviews, which I thought were really cool. So I think that they're getting there, right? And I think that feedback from, you know, people in the community, I'm sure that they would take that and with stride and try and, you know, try to figure out how to implement some of these things. I'm sure they're not all going to get implemented next year, because I'm sure it's very difficult. I'm sure that you need people to man certain things, and they only have so much manpower, and they're already spread out with, you know, doing all the necessary jobs to even get this footage in the first place. Like, I really like the multiple camera angles, and they're like following people off the platform and all that stuff, which is really cool. So I think they're heading in the right direction. But I think, you know, they'd be very open to feedback and some ideas like that, because, you know, the person I talked to thought, you know, more displays on the actual screens, like in the convention center, so that the spectators sitting there watching the meet can see all these stats. They thought it was a great idea, you know. So like, I'm hoping that they implement something like that. Maybe if we, you know, give them some more feedback, maybe they'll try to implement a little bit more stuff. But yeah, I think overall, that's what's going to make powerlifting a little bit more spectator friendly, if you will.
Yes.
You know, yeah. And I think that's what's going to allow it to, I guess, progress to the level of, say, strongman, the world's strongest man, or CrossFit Games, right? That's what's called, CrossFit
and
Games.
So you also have to understand, when it comes down to these other things, it's like the top 10 is so often like repeated and ubiquitous. You watch strongman, what do you see is like the top 10 list. Who's in the lead right now? What do they need to do to move on to the next? And the commentators talk about that.
Exactly.
That's what keeps you interested. Like, oh shit, like what's going on over here? Oh, it looks like it's about to turn around. So we need to like present that a whole lot better.
Because then it could be like, sorry, I keep doing that. Because then it could be like the most mundane task, right? And people would still be interested.
Precisely. Legit. Like, you just make it competitive. Make it something that the announcers can say, oh, look at this. This person has a chance to come back with that. And all of a sudden you go, hold on a second. What's happening right now? It's a little bit of an underdog situation. You know? You have a little underdog you can root for, and that kind of stuff that keeps you like engaged. Be it bench press, be it squat, be it deadlift. You need to have a narrative. And that's, I think, what it comes down to. You need to develop the narrative for what's on the screen more so than anything else. It's great to have fancy graphics. It's great to have like a great cinematography. But what it comes down to, what it boils down to, is we need a story that people can relate to and be engaged with. If there's no story there, it's like if it's fucking like 50 different stories with no explanation, no character development, so to speak, because these like 40, 50 people lifting concurrently, whatnot, then what the fuck are people going to be watching for? You're going to be watching your own particular story, and you don't care about anything else that's taking place there. You don't care about, like, you know, the fact that, oh, man, this is actually quite interesting. This person may be 50th right now, but we're looking at somebody who's going to be fucking pulling ahead because they like to open up to the bench presses and the deadlifts a whole lot later than you should be. Mm-hmm. You know, and you don't get to see that. You don't get to see, like, oh, man, let's see what the underlying mechanisms here are. What are the inner workings? What are, like, you know, like the jukes and, like, fucking, like, you know, just, like, the strategy. What's the strategy taking place here?
Yeah, so, I think the commentators do a very good job of that to some extent, and the, you know, like I said, the YouTube displays are a little bit more informative than the actual displays you see on the screens as a spectator, like watching the event live. But I still think it could be better to where maybe even the spectators or well, yeah, I was gonna say like maybe even the spectators can hear the commentating, but then you get that
Yes.
then they collide with Gino and so I don't know how that will work. So that might not
Do
be
you know
the
how that
greatest idea.
works? How that works is you have Gino become a commentator.
Actually, yeah, but does that take away from like the glitz and glam sort of production of the whole thing?
Give him a headset. We basically speaking to the commentators behind the booth and whatnot, and they coordinate, bounce off each other. That's exactly how it takes place. You have screens out there with the commentators talking, and they go back and forth. It's
Actually, yeah, and you
you
could
know
use like closed captioning.
precisely, and it wouldn't be the first time this has happened. This happened elsewhere.
No, that's true. That's true. That's
So
true.
this is something entirely doable. Gino is indeed a charismatic figure. Having him out there
Yeah.
that does basically draw people to the crowd, to the sport. Having some engagement between him and the commentators behind the scenes, I think, could make it a little bit more comedic as well. Gino is a funny guy. If you give somebody to work off and whatnot, I think it'd
Oh,
make
for
it even more
sure.
interesting.
Yeah, because my ultimate point was like the commentators do a great job of informing the people watching the YouTube, right? And not that Gino doesn't do a great job, but like the commentators are allowed to give you more of those stats. Like I even heard some cases where they were talking about previous meets that they did
Yep.
because they're able to pull up all that information in front of them, right? Because
Yes.
they're not like like live with a microphone on the platform, right? So they're able to pull up stats. They're saying, hey, this is what they did at this meet and blah blah blah, and they are talking about like the attempt calls that they're making and things like that. But how can we relay that information to the live spectators? Is what I'm saying, because like I feel like that will keep them a lot more engaged because otherwise it goes back to what I said about like you're just kind of waiting for your friend unless you're like one of the like you just competed yesterday and you're watching, do you know what's going on? It's like
Yes.
most people are just friends and family there to support you, and it's like they wait for you to come up, they take their video, you go, and they don't even know where you're going. They have no idea what you're doing after you walk off that stage.
So,
It's
well, what it comes down to is basically just integrating the behind the scenes with the front of the scenes a little bit better and whatnot. And like doing visual representations of that stuff. So now basically you have
correct.
a better picture of the stories that are taking place, the story arcs which are taking place and converging at that point.
Yeah.
I'd say keep the 4 platforms. We don't need to have Gino calling out each and every single last attempt. If you're, and I hate to say it, but it is what it is. If you're just there,
The lift is good, not good. Hold on.
you don't need that. And like because ultimately it comes down to those lights. And Gino will say the lift is good on quite a few occasions, and it'd be overturned, actually be a bad lift. So maybe what he should be doing instead of calling out good lifts and bad lifts and how much weight is on the bar, is to talk about basically how maybe something is significant over here. But maybe like basically add color to the commentary which is taking place behind the scenes. They can talk about the numbers, they can talk about the significance, and he can talk about whatever anecdote he sees. We can talk about like the outfits and that kind of stuff. He can basically play off of his personality in a better way as opposed to just talking about how much weight is on the bar and 666 and so on and so forth.
No, for sure. I think these are all great ideas, to be honest, and I hope that things like this are implemented in the future.
I hope so. I definitely would like for us to get together, maybe come with some ideas, maybe forward it to the people, I guess, like who are in charge, and see if they can implement it, like a more formal, I guess, like what you call a recommendation. And I would I would very highly doubt that they wouldn't take any actions. They're very receptive to the feedback.
I know.
To their credit, USAPL is listening, despite what other people may be saying and bemoaning and so on and so forth. They actually do care about what people are saying.
It's you can't make changes overnight.
Takes a while.
You can't. Yeah, it takes a little bit of time. There are processes that you need to go through, but I do think that they are listening and they are willing to take some action based on feedback. So
let's
very excited to see what comes in the future.
Speaking of U.S. coaches at the IPF international level, let's talk about sub-juniors, sub-junior worlds, and junior worlds. Matteo, what did you think about the overall performance?
Are you talking about a specific person?
Perhaps, perchance,
Are you
mayhaps.
talking about this specific athlete that decided to, his coach decided to open him up really heavy on squats to the point that they ended up bombing out because he wanted them to be competitive? Yes?
So to add some context to this, one of the lifters at Sub-Junior Worlds opened up at 5 kilograms beneath his all-time gym PR.
Hell yeah, brother.
And while in the warm-up room, found himself, let's just say, in not the best of shape. And instead of his attempt being changed by his handler, his USA coach, it was not changed. and so the opener remained the same. He went out there, he missed his opener, he missed his second, he missed his third on squats, and he bombed out of the meet. So that's a bit.
And then he proceeded to bomb out on bench as well.
So I was getting to that. You're stealing my
Okay, I'm
thunder.
sorry.
But so this person then made a whole post. The person's actual coach made a whole post talking about how he's trying to be competitive, yada yada. And I've never really heard of anybody squatting for the win. It's not the most tactical.
Squatting for the win.
Can
I also add that I didn't know this guy from a hole in the wall, and I went through his page a little bit, and like a few posts back, there was he had a reel about choosing
I've seen that.
attempts, especially for the squat, and it was like choosing a light opener, blah blah blah. I was like, you totally went against your own advice here. I commented that, and he blocked me.
Well, people were literally taking his quote from that video and posting it in his post and getting blocked for it. Apart from you, literally verbatim. I didn't make any posts. I don't want to hit beat anybody while he's down. But
I think he blocked Quentin too, because Quentin was tagging me in the post.
He tagged the both of us in the post,
clowning him. Yeah,
and he went ham on the post, and he got blocked. So how's that for transparency? People give you a response to what you did, and you block them. While talking about being transparent.
To be fair, I'm trolling him.
No, I know, but if you're being transparent,
I didn't give him any sort of fair criticism.
I understand, but if you're being transparent, maybe you expect to be fucking trolled, right? You know what I mean?
That's fair. I guess that's
putting
fair.
myself out there, except for anybody who disagrees with my
that. It would actually be like when you made the bomb out post from the Arnold. If you just started blocking people that were saying negative shit,
I was all for it. It's like shit.
So you are knowingly welcoming that by posting it. So so you should just accept it for what it is.
It's
get roasted. Wake up tomorrow. These fucking people on Instagram will forget all about it anyway.
Get better is what it comes out. So his post is very disingenuous now because he talks about nothing but the fucking squat bomb out and how it should have happened in warm-up area. Yes, that's right. But you learn after that, right? So why did it happen a second time during the same fucking meet? How did you?
Bench?
He bombed out on bench as well.
Too?
Yes.
Get the fuck out.
Yes.
Of here. I didn't even know about that.
Bro, so you're talking about being transparent. Meantime, you're obscuring the actual fucking facts. How does that make any fucking sense? How are you being fucking? You're not being fucking transparent. You're being disingenuous. You're being manipulative here. You're trying to cater to people's fucking sympathy and empathy and saying, oh look, but this all happens. No, motherfucker, you did it twice in one fucking meet to the same fucking lifter. You don't fucked up.
It happens twice.
You don't fucked up, and it happens. I've done fucked up before. It happened. So the thing is, you own up to this and you move on. So he bombs out on bench press. Instead of revising things downwards, he keeps the attempts the same and whatnot, things that fucked up. But it's not the only person who that happened with. Wasn't somebody else also competing out there in 90 kg weight class, Mateo, and had a very interesting experience with the whole handling? The attempts weren't changed.
Are you talking about Brandon Jones?
Yes, I'm talking about Brandon Jones. What happened with Brandon Jones?
I don't know exactly what happened, by the way. I know he missed his third squat, and then he. Let me double check. I don't know exactly what happened, but I've heard something about that too. Let me double check.
Please and thank you. So the point being here that a certain person, I feel, was appointed to that position who should not have been appointed to that position. If you are making these kind of mistakes on meet day, if you can't put attempt changes in for somebody who's clearly hurting, and warm ups and so on and so forth in time, then there's an issue with the way you're handling people, and you're not fit for that position. It's ironic to see somebody like Matt Gary, who is competent from, in the handling of position, be removed from that position while not having made those mistakes. That's all I'm trying to get at.
I can't understand being in a position of handling a lifter you don't really know, and you're just given a plan to execute, right? In one regard, you kind of hope that, the coach gave you the right plan. He knows the lifter well. We're going to just be able to execute.
So I've actually done this a couple of times. It's not that hard.
No, I'm saying though, and I just understand being in that position where you're all right, I don't want to I'm not going to take over this whole scenario and create an entire new plan, right? It's and even if the lifter's oh, I'm not feeling that great, it's what exactly do we do here, right? But at some point, you have to step in and take control and make the necessary adjustments when you see something that you know is not going to fucking go well.
Precisely.
You know what I mean?
And the USA team's efforts there shouldn't be to land this lifter in the best position possible. It should be to land the US team in the best position possible. If the US
Correct.
team has bomb outs taking place on multiple fucking lifts, how the fuck are you helping out the team is what I want to know. You know?
Correct.
So that's my issue there.
I mean, if your attempt selection has you bombing out, you're not doing well for yourself.
Bombing out
anyways.
twice. You know what I mean? Which is why you prepare for these eventualities.
Usually's like, whoa, whoa, whoa. All right, it happens to the best.
No.
of us. I'm kidding.
It's besides the point. You know, like my bomb out is what it is. I own up to that. I fucked up. You know, I should have better reported my data to James and so on and so forth. But being somebody who's dealt with these situations with lifters in the past, I could talk about nationals, even this past nationals over here, and then having these plans and seeing the momentum was generating that was being developed, I guess, like into meet day, and then seeing what happens in the warm area. As a good handler, I had to make changes.
Yeah.
You know, as a good handler, you see these things taking place, and you make plans for all these eventualities. As recently as Northeast, as recently as the World Cup, I found myself handling somebody else's lifter. I think one of Brad Couillard's lifter, a boy by the name, somebody by the name of Brian, and I never worked with him in the past. Now, what I did was I did my due diligence. I sent over all his most recent top sets, some singles and that kind of stuff. I sent over his PR lifts. I sent over his attempt selection and whatnot, and we all worked on it together. Like me and Brad had a long conversation about how things should be and how to optimize this attempt selection. Went out over there, made some changes, went down a couple of lifts and that kind of stuff. And the guy ended up going 8 for 9 on his day. Hit PRs, I want to say virtually all across the board. And it came down to us communicating, and I was seeing what was taking place in real time, making changes off of that. I think squats could have been a little bit better. Yeah, I think he ended up going 2 for 3 on squats. That was the only lift he missed. You know, but it just came down to us basically starting to calibrate a little bit better and that kind of stuff. And we making some revisions and also being in touch with Brad on this and figuring things out. I didn't see that happening with this lifter when it came out to the other handler over there, which is kind of disappointing. You know, if squat bomb out's going to happen, maybe get your shit together by bench press is what I'm trying to say over here.
Yeah,
You know?
I totally agree.
Maybe put some points on the board as opposed to fucking failing out of that as well. I'd like to see the sport grow. I think the federations themselves need to just do a little bit more, I guess, like paying attention to what needs to happen and maybe referring out to other sports and seeing what they're doing that's successful and starting to model themselves after that is what I would say. I think the whole Powerlifting America versus USAPL thing could be, could continue, ad infinitum. But I do think the federations need to work from themselves as to what they could do to make themselves better instead of saying, okay, this is what's taking place over here, therefore let me interrupt this person and work against them in that country, which is mostly what I see happen to Powerlifting America. Having their nationals take place at the same time as USAPL nationals, having
Yeah, it's like a dick measuring contest.
It really is. It's so fucking petty. It's ridiculous. But I think so long as they're basically focusing on themselves and building themselves up, I think the sport itself can grow. I would like to see a reconciliation at some point in time. I think it's an unreasonable ask based off the bad blood that both of them have between each other. But I don't know. We're living through exciting times right now. We're seeing a whole lot of fucking crazy changes take place. Nationals was, I want to say, a great meet. I had a great time out there myself. There's some things which need improvement. I do think USAPL is not dead like some people reporting. Like that individual who was talking about the bomb out was saying the USAPL is over and done with. I definitely disagree with that. And his
Well,
sorry, go ahead.
he's not a trustworthy person in the first place, but yeah, keep going.
Yes, exactly. That's what I'm getting into.
Just coping.
Just coping. But yeah, I guess this is as good a point I think as any to maybe to wrap up the episode. Mark,
I would agree.
Mateo.
I would also agree.
Okay, so with that said, thank you guys for joining. There's going to be a whole lot of editing on this episode.
Like usual.
As usual. Thank you for tuning in.
No,
We're
actually going to listen to this one.
Yeah. And let us know what you think. Peace.
Peace.